Good morning, Rabbi Sai. Leila Nishmas Imi Merosi Ruspas Mordechai. As promised yesterday, this was the very inspiring picture of Azi Holtz and his brother Etiel. Azi is 12 years old and had surgery, and with the surgery and everything, he was able to continue doing the daf. Didn't hold him back. We have here the London Siyum, 90 plus people in London. Outdoor Siyum. The first ever Siyum in Montreal. Huge. Chaim Shup. We have over here the famous Moshe Apter. He's been with us. This kid has been with us. He's a bacher. At least 2 years, maybe more. You know what his chavrus is? The goat. Very good. So, shkoyach to those guys.
London was outside. That's very cold now in London. Happy we won.
Is it cold? I don't even know. Rabbi Sai, this gives me a lot of pleasure, this picture right here. I've been dreaming about this just for a few weeks. I think this could be a revolution in the yeshiva world. And I was starting with these guys. And I'll just say that I was closing shop last night at about 1 a.m, a little bit before 1, 5 minutes to 1 or so. And a very famous Rosh Yeshiva in Yerushalayim, a very big Talmud Chacham, Rosh Yeshiva, sent me an email. He said, I'd like to speak to you. You could call me in the next hour. I'm like, I thought maybe he's joking. He gave me his phone number. I was like, who? 1 o'clock to 2. So I called him up. We spoke for an hour and 11 minutes. And he invited me to speak in his yeshiva tonight, tentatively. So we'll see. Maybe tomorrow I'll have some news. That he wants me, he's a typical Rosh Yeshiva. He's worried about the daf. He says daf is not the only way. There's Kinyan Masechta, there's Amud Yomi, he's pushing the Amud Yomi thing. Nevertheless, he thinks that it will be a great fit in his yeshiva for certain individuals. There's actually, his father's not here, but there's a guy that used to come every day almost, this shir, and he's in that yeshiva. Very famous yeshiva. I'll talk about it hopefully tomorrow. This is from Ari Green, also part of the shir. I don't know if he's here. Where's Ari? I don't see him, but his boys are here. This is Ohr Moshe. Opening day in Yeshiva's Ohr Moshe, a dream come true. Here's the screen, 18 guys sitting and watching the shir. And I think we're not going to stop until we get into brisk. Because this is not a contradiction to brisk. I'm not trying to undo anything. I'm saying we got to learn lumdus, we got to learn how to learn. But what do the guys do on their off time? If they're not watching movies, then maybe they're talking Lashon Hara. Isn't this better than that? Yediyas HaTorah. So,
you get about this time.
Miami Siyum, Rabbi Isai. Miami Siyum, unbelievable. And a quick email from Rabbi Brody. He's a Magichir here in Ramat Bet Shemesh. Beautiful email he sent me last night at 10:30 at night. I'm not going to write the whole Arichos, the Shvachim and everything. We're on a Nova campaign. One of my dear special Talmidim, Shleima Forcham, graces Yeshir every morning. Where's Shleima? Is he here? Every morning. Very good. Get over here. Shleima, come here. Yeah. Yeshiva Bacher, get over here. No. I don't have to cajole him out of bed in my capacity as Mashgiach. He's Mashgiach there. He's also Magichir somewhere, no? He was by Rabbi Sussman. Shalom Aleichem Shleima. Shkoyach for coming every day. He's a great guy, Rabbi Rafi, Rabbi Brody. What do you guys call him? You call him Rafi? Mashgiach? Yeah, a few more shiurim here. You're not going to do that anymore, right? Shkoyach. We're going to finish Shas together. Get over here. Get back here. I have something to tell you. He just told me. I don't have to get him out of bed. He's on his way to Yeshir together with his friend Dovi Dolinsky. Is Dovi here? Here. Yishkoyach for all the help and the team. You just told me said you helped tremendously. Yishkoyach, hakar zatayv. For some of the daf fills them up with learning for days, and they have such a yaitze, they have been yaitze the chiyuv. Shlomi related to me this evening how on the contrary. It gives him the drive, koyach, and inspiration for much more energetic and intense morning seder. You hear? Comes here in the morning, gets up early to get here, and that's great for the whole day. Comes back from every shir on a high and is boosted to start his day of learning on the right foot. May Hashem continue giving you koyach, siyad shmaya, best wishes and deep respect, Rafi Brody, Yishkoyach. Rabbi Sai, I want to take this opportunity, a tremendous hakaras hatov to our very, very good friend, Yehoshua Ehrenpeis. After a lot of thought, he decided that it's time for him to move on to other things for personal reasons. Has a great job now, and he wanted to take the time off. So we will forever be indebted to him for what he's done for this year. He grew this year from day one. He was there. He used to stand outside, go to grocery stores, pour the coffee, thousands of cups of coffee, and we have a tremendous hakaras hatov. We'll always have tremendous hakaras hatov to him. The parnas hachodesh for the koilel is Chayim from Lakewood. Leilu nishmas Yehoshua Aryeh Leyb הכהן ben Yonatan Chayim Zechron Levracha, 23-year-old from Esha Torah. Maseches Megillah, the Davis and Kessler family is in zechus, Refuah shleima for Miriam Esther Devora. Maseches Megillah Shmuly Hecht F245, the nishmas for Mordechai Sapoznick Tobia ben Avraham Moshe Hirsch. Parnas hachodesh RL 97 Akiva Tepper for introducing me to Eli's Daf. Parnas hachodesh Daniel and Cyril Cohen. Zechus for Refuah shleima for Gabriel ben Yamin ben Cyril Fruma. Mordechai Sapoznick for the yards of my great aunt, Rebbetzin Rechel Wertheim. Rechel Bazarav Aaron, Miriam Esther have an aliyah by Moshe Hirsch. In honor of my wife's birthday, thank you for always taking care of everything so I can listen to the shir so early in the morning, and also for making sure I can do Ohr HaMercaz. Moshe Hirsch does a tremendous job on Ohr HaMercaz. By Shmuly Becks, and married my grandmother Rebbetzin Ryan of Chicago, Bluma Bas Yosef Aryeh. Abba Renner, in honor of Rebellion, should help me be Simon another Masechta. Welcome Herschel West, Gershi Tress, and Moshe Yudakovsky to Megillah. Enjoy the ride. And finally, by Eli Elkan, because Rebelli said I'm done sponsoring, so I'm sponsoring today. I would have done yesterday, but I didn't know about the call out because I missed that daf. Not exactly sure what that means, but we get it. Yaeli is Yaeli. Don't worry about him. He's good. Rabbi said we have a phenomenal daf today. Very, very geshmaka daf. We're holding like 4 lines from where it becomes wide. Mas nisin deloy kehaitana. We learned in the Mishnah that when you have a walled city from the time of Yehoshua ben Nun, you read the Megillah on the 15th of Adar. Says the Gemara, but our Mishnah doesn't go according to the following Mando Amar, the Sanya. It has nothing to do with Yehoshua ben Nun. It has to do with Achashverosh. You know, if we were writing the Gemara, if we wanted to come up with our own shita, we'd probably come up with that shita as well, because that's when the nes happened. That's when Mordechai and Esther lived. So it has to do with Achashverosh. In other words, let's say there was a city like Shushan, for instance, that there's no wall in the time of Yehoshua ben Nun, but a couple hundred years later, they built a wall. Now what? Is that a city that you read on the 14th or the 15th? So according to Shimon Karcha, you read because the wall existed during Achashverosh. My time in the Rabbi Shimon Karcha, Ki Shushan. Ma Shushan. Where are you? Yeah. Where? No, not yet. Rabbi said, not yet. I'm good. My time the Rabbi Shimon Karcha. Ki Shushan. Ma Shushan makevas chayma mimois Achashverosh v'kol b'chamisha asar. Av kol shemukevas chayma mimois Achashverosh korin b'chamisha asar. It's similar to Shushan. Shushan didn't have a wall. We don't know that it had a wall. It doesn't say anywhere it had a wall in the time of Yehoshua ben Nun. Had a wall in the time of Achashverosh. So anything that has a wall from that time on, it doesn't need to be from Yehoshua ben Nun, says Rabbi Shimon Karcha. My time. Why does our Mishnah argue and say that it has to be from the time of Yehoshua ben Nun? Yalef, prazi. So, I don't know that we have to see this. I just like this picture. It's a really cool place. What? You were there?
Yeah.
You were there?
Yeah.
It's gorgeous. Yeah. On the water in Croatia. Yeah, okay, fine. It's the Irmuk of Chayma. Haprazi. It says Haprazi. So we have Gzeir Shava. Gzeir Shava is if you have one word here, you have another word somewhere else, then we could compare the two. Now, Ksiv Hacha, it says in the Megillah, Al-Kain HaYudim HaPrazim, Ksiv Hasam, Levad Me'ore HaPrazi Harbe Ma'oy. So it says in Megillah the word prazi. It also says that when Yehoshua, Moshe Rabbeinu, Yehoshua, they conquered. What did they conquer? Even the cities that don't have a wall, the Tzur is Chayim, the ones with the wall. But it also says Ma'aria prazi. Prazi means wide open without a wall. Ma lahalon mimois Yehoshua benun. Rashi takes out the words mukavas chayma. So does the guy. Because we're not talking about mukavas chayma. It can't be in the Gemara the words mukavas chayma because we're talking about prazi. Prazi means without a wall. So Rashi takes out the words mukavas chayma. What's the pshat in the Gemara? Just like over here mimois Yehoshua benun, we're talking about a city that doesn't have a wall. And if you go ahead and you build the wall 200 years later, it doesn't count because it's called a prazi. This is what constitutes prazi. When does a city become open? Yehoshua ben Nun. This pasuk. If you are an open city without a wall during Yehoshua ben Nun, then you're a prazi forever. It doesn't matter that later on, in a later generation, you built a wall. Afkan, Yehoshua ben Nun. Just very interesting. I must point out that Rashi seems to hold that this is a real Gzeir Shava. And it needs understanding because Gzeir Shava is something that Moshe Rabbeinu got in Har Sinai. You don't make it up. You don't say, a similar word, prazi, prazi. Kicha, kicha is the Ephraim. It's Moshe Rabbeinu heard it from Hashem himself and he's delivering it. So what exactly did he hear? There's no Megillah then. So obviously Hashem said, look, this word prazi you're going to use later on in a different generation for Gzeir Shava and it's going to, whatever. I don't know how it works. I don't know how it works. Others disagree. They say it's like Gzeir Shava. It's not a real Gzeir Shava. Okay. Says the Gemara, the Leslie prazi. Okay. Yehoshua ben Karcha doesn't hold of this Gzeir Shava. What does it mean he doesn't hold of the Gzeir Shava? He never received it from his Rebbe. A Gzeir Shava goes in tradition from Rebbe to Rebbe. You can't just make it up. So he never got it. Why didn't he get it? Because according to a lot of Rishonim, it didn't exist. It's not something that Hashem said. But our Tana, that says that a walled city is from the time of Yehoshua ben Nun, not from the time of Achashverosh. How come he doesn't say, like Yehoshua ben Karcha? My taima? What do you mean? Why? The Isli prazi. He received in tradition from his Rebbe, who received from his Rebbe, that prazi. It goes all the way up to Yehoshua ben Nun. It doesn't start by Achashverosh. Hey, you're right, that's a very good question. Ela Shushan the of the Kiman. Shushan. In the time of Achashverosh, with the whole nace, the big part of the nace having Shushan, it did have a wall, but not from Yehoshua ben Nun's days. Like your prazim, so the of the Kiman. Why do we read the Megillah? When do we read the Megillah in Shushan? On the 15th. Why? It's not a wall from Yehoshua ben Nun. And it's not an open city. So what is it? So anytime it says the word Kedi in Shas, it either means there's a person named Kedi, or it just means anonymous. It was just said in the Maseches Megillah note without a name. Shani Shushan Hoyel V'nas V'nes. So there was a big nace in Shushan. The Jews were able to take care of the enemy all the way through the 15th. So they rested. That's when they rested a day later than everybody else, because they're busy killing all the enemies. So therefore, they instituted and they said, okay, you'll read on the 15th, but not because it has a wall. The wall that Shushan has doesn't count as a wall. The wall must be there from the time of Yehoshua ben Nun, way before, generations before. Now, I've never been zechus to be in Yerushalmi Shul on Purim. But I can tell you that when it comes to Haman, they're very, very makbid. It's very loud. I can only imagine what it sounds like when they say the following words. T'chsiv, Medina u'Medina. I don't know. I'm just saying. So there's a double lashon. It's coming to tell us 4 different things. Medina u'Medina. A Medina is a province. A Ir is a city. So we have Medina, one province versus the other. That's 2. One is a city, a province that has a wall, the other one also has a wall, but one is a wall from Yehoshua ben Nun, and one is from Achashverosh. Ir ve'ir, nami l'chalik ben Shushan l'shara yoros. And I have to make a distinction between Shushan and other cities, because Shushan had a nace, the others didn't. El Yehoshua ben Karcha, bishlam medina l'chalik ben Shushan l'shara yoros. Okay, we agree, everybody agrees that Shushan is different than all other cities. El ir ve'ir l'mayasa. Shushan had a wall all the way from Achashverosh, and therefore there's no difference. Before the other Tana, there's a difference between this generation and the other generation. But according to this Tana, Shushan had a wall from Achashverosh. So where's the difference? Tana da minicha says the Gemara. So at the end of the day, this whole thing doesn't make sense anyways. Medina, ir ve'ir. You don't have 4 different things to make drushes. Why? You also have a kash on our Tana. Even the Islay, prazi. You forgot about this whole pasuk that we spoke about before. You're pretending that there's nothing going on. Medina. I'm telling you the difference. Medina between a city that has a wall and doesn't have a wall. I don't need that. I already have it from prazi. Here, prazi means a city without a wall. So the Medina is extra. What am I learning from Medina? I already learned from prazi. So this whole thing is a problem. Medina, ir ve'ir. You don't have enough what to learn out of. I don't have what. So what am I going to say? The pasuk ir ve'ir is not coming to say that there's 4 types of cities. It's going to say something completely different, just to tell us halacha. The Rabbi Yehoshua ben Levi, who does? The Rabbi Yehoshua ben Levi goes to tell us halacha. Rabbi Yehoshua ben Levi, krach v'chol hasamach loy. Mentioned yesterday that if you are in Bet Shemesh and you're next to Tel Bet Shemesh and it has a wall and you could see it looks like you're part of that city, you read on the 15th. That's why, in Yerushalayim, they have every year the same question. What about Ramot? Ramot is like Yerushalayim. It's almost, yes, the bus goes there and everything, and they actually use the bus as an example, as a reason. And then the guy that got involved, and they said, well, you don't even live in Ramot, so you don't have a right to tell us what the kids are. It got very interesting. Krach, a krach means a city with a wall, like Yerushalayim, like the old city of Yerushalayim. And when it's seen with it, when you look from the top, it looks like it's one. Now, just very interesting halacha here. If you have a house from the old city, let's say Arza Abira is right there by the old city, and then you go in, it's Sanhedrin, all the way to Ramot. They're all connected. Then you have to read on the 15th. The problem with Ramot is that you have that highway in between, and there's nothing in between. Okay. But let's say there's a house all the way to Ramot, and then the house keeps on going all the way to Haifa. You read in Haifa all the way on the 15th. That's how it is. House to house to house to the wall.
Haifa, they can see across the Beit Akko, so that was it from Yehoshua.
Oh, let me. I'll get there in a second. What if you have a city like Yerushalayim, but not Yerushalayim? It's a city that has a suffix. Suffix if the wall existed in time Yehoshua ben Nun. I'll give you an example in a second. A city and there's a house, but it's a suffix. The Bir Halacha, Chaim says, you don't read. But the Chazon Ish says, you do read on the 15th. So it comes out a tremendous nafkamina. Where? In the Chazon Ish's city, Bnei Brak. Bnei Brak is house to house to Yaffo. And Yaffo has a wall, but they don't know if it's from Yehoshua ben Nun. So according to Chazon Ish, you have to read the Megillah in Bnei Brak on the 15th. Yet I never heard of that when I lived in Bnei Brak. Lived there for 3 years, believe it or not. And so I was in the middle calling somebody from Bnei Brak to ask him if he ever heard of it. Chazon Ishnik, his father was a dayan by Reb Nizim Karelis, but I forgot to ask him. We'll ask him today. Beautiful nafkamina. Says the Gemara, Tel Aviv is, I don't know if it's connected like that. I don't know. Yeah, it is. Okay. Yeah, Tel Aviv is, right. They're saying it is. Fine. Zog the Gemara. At Kama. What does it mean? How far away? Mil. It's like from a city called Chamason to Tveria. And it's a mill. 2,000 amma, approximately 4,000 feet away, less than a mile away. Mil. So why do you have to tell me this city to that city? Just say a mill. Here's the measurement. This year the mill I'm telling you exactly what a mill is. You want to know? Go get in your car, drive from Chematon, Litveria, you'll know what a mill is. Okay, Rabbi, so here goes. Here's the shmaka stuff to relax now. Minatzbach, these are the letters of Minatzbach. Mem nun tzadik pei chaf. Now, this one I don't even want to say what it is. Tzadik Sofi, and the tzadik, call it whatever you want. Lange tzadik. You see, that's why I don't want to get into it. You insert, I never heard of a lange tzadik. There's a lange tzadik, emes tzadik, end tzadik. Yeah, who says a lange tzadik? End tzadik. Fine. You say lange? Who?
Final tzaddik.
A final tzaddik. That's why I don't want to get. You say whatever you want. Okay? I used to say in the tzaddik. Yeah. But I learned Hasidic Chadar. Okay. Says the Gemara right now. All these guys, the final guys, were made up by the Nevi'im. Didn't exist in the Torah. Tzayfa V'tizber asked the Gemara Bam Kasha. V'ksiv Eila Mitzvah. These are the mitzvahs in the Torah. She'ein Navi Rishai L'Chadish Davar Me'ata. You're not allowed to add anything to the Torah. You could add a geder, a takana. It's not to add. You make a geder, but you can't add a mitzvah. You can't add a chumrah. You can't add something else. How do they add letters to the Torah? Oh, it says mefurish that the mem and the tzad samach were sitting with a nes. Now let me show you real quickly. I had such a enough from this graph. In a second, I'll show you why. What was the nes? Think about it. What was the nes? What exactly came out of this thing? The luchas were engraved. They were through and through. What part was through and through? Show you what part. Here, this part. You see this part? This entire thing didn't exist. The whole samach didn't exist. What existed? This black. So I was thinking to myself, how do I do that? I got to show you how it looks. Here. Beautiful. I have such a. This is what it looked like, Rabbi Isai. Yeah? It's nice stuff. It was through and through. The luchas. But how did this... So the Gemara says, a mem also, a mem sofit, a mem and a mem, a final mem, also has this, and it's in the luchas.
Turn it around, that'll be a trick.
No hands. There, look, mom. Okay. When I chapped how to do this. I felt so good. It felt great. I told the Rashiva about it. So you guys are going to have the whole daf. I said, if you just remember this and this becomes chorot in your mind for the rest of your life. This is how it looks. I myself was confused when I was reading the Gemara. I read it many times. But what exactly did they take out? The middle, the center, now I know. The whole ice came out and the center was there. This was stone. Oh, the center, what? Why do you say that?
How did you say that?
I said, they're not spelled the same. One is with the C, one is with the S. Listen, I can't say anything next to this guy. Cut that out. So what do you see? That this guy, these guys right over here, these guys. Look, you see that this was in the luchas. Forget about Nevi'im. Nevi'im didn't make it up. It was already in the luchas because this doesn't have that trick. So obviously we're talking about this. You know what Rashi says? We could have just answered that these were the originals. All these were the originals. And the Nevi'im made up these. So unbelievable Rashi. I think we have to see the Rashi inside because this is a yesod for Shas. It helps a lot of beginners in Shas, people that struggle a little bit with Gemara. Some of the questions of Gemara sometimes are a little interesting. I don't get the question. It's not the strongest question. So Rashi says over here, you look, top Rashi, but go like 8 lines down, and Rashi says, V'urcha de sugya de Gemara lahakshis davar she'enoi. Unbelievable Rashi. It's the derech of the Shas to ask questions that sometimes don't exist. You can actually answer them easy. and they're not the biggest bomb questions. We're just trying to bring you to a certain point where you understand better. The question, like, wow, it's not the greatest question, a Reb Kiva Eger Tzarchim Gadol question. It's an okay question. Says the Gemara. Write that down. This Rashi. We had it a bunch of times, but it's kedai to remember this. Says the Gemara in Mahavahavu. No. You misunderstood what I was saying. Everything existed, both the full letters, the round letters, the end, the middle, whatever you want to call it. The Rishonim actually ask, just look in the Sefer Torah that existed from the Moshe's days. It's known things. They discuss it. They didn't have whatever. We weren't sure. Does the mem sofi that we know, this square, does it go in the beginning of the word? And this is the final. If this happens to be at the end of the word, so you put a mem like this. We didn't know. So, and then the Nevi'im came along and told us how to do it. How could the Navi come along and tell us something new? Okay, they didn't invent it. The Gemara first thought that this way or that way could go both ways. The Nevi'im did it. No, there was a certain way. It was the mem that we know it was the mem that we know. The mem sofit was the way we know, but Klai Yisrael forgot. Says the Gemara of Targum Shel Torah. Shnaim Mikra ve'echad Targum. The Unkelos on the side is Unkelos Hager Amarai. He was a ger. His name was Unkelos. Where did he get it from? Mepi Rebbe Eliezer Rebbe Yehoshua. He had two Rabbeim. Exactly what he invented, exactly what he brought to the world is not 100% clear. Maybe he took the two of their Torahs, he asked each one, what's the pshat, how to do it, and he put it together, so it's attributed to him. Targum Shel Nevi'im, Yonisam ben Uzil Amoroi, Mepi Chagi Zechari Malachi. We're going to have their names soon also. The Nevi'im, so Yonisam ben Uzil came from Chagi Zechari Malachi. But by the way, this week in Ohr HaMercaz is the 50th article by Rabbi Schoenberg. I don't know if Rabbi Schoenberg, you want to come to the front now? I want to give you a great shkoyach. If you can come to the front, great. If not, I won't be matriach you. And also, he gets a tremendous mazel tov. What's the mazel tov? This week. Well, Bar Mitzvah mazel tov. Rabbi Schoenberg, here he is. The one with the Hadras pony. Hey, look at the screen for a second. You don't want to come to me? Look over there. Give out. 50 articles, all interesting articles. And this is right up his alley. Where did Unkelos get it from? Why this? Great kashas. Why is Unkelos better than anything else? What about Art Scroll? What about other things? So, says the Gemara, we'll see in a second. So, V'nizdaz Eretz Yisrael, Arbama is Parsa. Many times in Shas, most times in Shas, when the number 400 appears, it's a guzma. 400 and 300 are guzmais. Yotza Baskel, in other words, the whole Eretz Yisrael shook up a lot. Yotza Baskel Vamra, and there was a voice from Shemayim. Who is this person who let everybody know my secrets? He stood up and said, he stuck up for himself. I'm the one who did it. I didn't do it for my own honor. I did it for you. People don't know right pshat in the pasuk. Many times, I myself, if you don't have a good pshat, I forgot where it was. I underlined this week, like somewhere in Shlishi, the Targum says something completely different than the words. It's just a real pshat. The vo, like tefillah or something, milchama. I have to look it up again. In like Shlishi, I'll look it up. So many times, right? Famous things. He meant this. He meant that. Oh, b'char b'kashti. The pasuk says b'char b'kashti. Thank you. Yeah, it doesn't mean my arrow. It means my tefillah. He brought it to the world. He said it. Okay. Shleima machlokes b'Yisrael. V'yibigish legalis targum shel ksuvim. Laibi from the koilel. Shkoya for being here every day. V'yibigish legalis targum shel ksuvim. Then he wanted to go on. Now this time I had a question here. I'm not exactly sure what the answer is, but what HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't know what's in his heart. He has to explain to HaKadosh Baruch Hu what he was thinking. And Hashem says, you're right. Okay, that's what you thought. But it could be it's more than that. It could be because he said it, so other people heard it, so there's no more Chilul Hashem, there's no more Kpeidarim, something like that. Okay. The biggest legalis targum shel ksuvim yotza baskel. He wanted to continue with his pirush on ksuvim. Says Hashem, no, dayecha, enough. My time. Why does Hashem say stop? Mishum the izbei kates Mashiach. You can't reveal when Mashiach is coming. Why not? I saw a beautiful pshat. I don't remember who it was. Maybe it's Fasemis or something. That once it's going to be in writing and Klai Yisrael knows what it is, you can't make it earlier. It's there. So I don't want to reveal. V'targum sh'toyer unkelus hager amaroi. V'targum sh'toyer unkelus hager amaroi. What? Unkelus hager is the one that invented it. V'omer aviko bar Oven, omer v'chanan, omer rav. B'adich siv v'yikru b'sefer Torah s'valikim b'fayrosh. Here's the pasuk. V'soim seichel. V'yavinu b'mikro. V'yikru b'sefer Torah s'valikim. V'yikru b'sefer Torah s'valikim. Ze mikro. This is chumash. Mifayrosh. It's explained. Ze targum. That's targum unkelus. So it says over here, in a pasuk, it tells you that it's Targum Unkelus. It can't be Unkelus made it. There's a way to divide up the psukim. There's pasuk Aleph, Beis, Gimel, not just one long sentence. Very interesting. It teaches you how to lane, the timing. Pashta, Darga, that's all. Reb Meltzer, that's the name. Oh, a grandson of Rebbe Zalman. Givaldik. No, so I'm just saying, if it says, don't think that these tunes that we sing are stam. You have to read them. You have to be careful with them. Now, you might not have to halachically repeat it if you make it a mistake. You say you missed the darga, but you should be very careful with it because it says here mefurish. You should say taimim. You know, there's a kriik siv. Sometimes the word is missing a vav, an extra vav. You don't read it with. You do read it with. Fine. Says the Gemara. So what did Unkelus bring to the world? Nothing. It's already there. It was forgotten and was brought back. So Targum came min hashamayim. Moshe Rabbeinu brought it down. That's why we do Shnayim Mikra Vecha Targum. It's the preferable way. What if you read the Torah with interlinear art scroll, word for word, not Yaitza? But what if you read it with the art scroll that's mefarish the Torah? Like the Targum, like Rashi, you could be Yaitza. I'm not paskening. I'm just saying what I read. Okay? As usual, just take that. I don't pasken. I'm just saying over stuff. Says the Gemara. Oh. We just have to understand. When he wrote the Pirush on the Torah, nothing happened to Eretz Yisrael. But in the V is Dazi. But when he wrote the Nevi'im, the whole Eretz Yisrael shook. The Reis Mefarshim Mil, so everybody knows what the pshat is. The Nevi, Ikamila the Mefarshim, Ikamila the Mistatman. Some of the stuff is not so understood, so therefore Eretz Yisrael shook. I'll give you an example. There's a big hesped, kemispad, just like the misped of Hadadriman Bevikas Megidon. Now, it doesn't exist, says Rashi. There's nowhere in the whole Torah that it says anything about Hadadriman Bevikas Megidon. So how could it be like the hesped of that story? I wouldn't understand. I need the Targum. It's actually talking about two stories. This is one story where Achav died. There's another story we just had in Tainus the other day that Yoshia didn't want Pari Nechai. Remember the crippled Pari? They got crippled from Shleima Melech's cheer. All he asked for is, let's go through, I want to go through Eretz Yisrael. Yoshia said, absolutely not. He read a pasuk, but he read it wrong. It wasn't for his generation. That caused him to die. Okay. Daniel Levadi Isamara. I, Daniel, saw the vision. And the men that were with me, they didn't see it. But nevertheless, they went to hide. Who are these men? These are not men. We just mentioned the big Nevi'im. Okay. Inu, says the Gemara, they are actually greater than Daniel. But he was greater than them. These three are Nevi'im. Daniel wasn't a Navi. Never do you see that HaKadosh Baruch Hu told Daniel, go say this Nevuah to Klal Yisrael. But nevertheless, Daniel was greater than them. He was able to see the vision, they didn't see the vision. But if they didn't see the vision, why would they run away? This is Gemara, a very big yesod maybe in life. There's a certain gender, I don't want to say which one, that has fears. Let's say if dark, whatever. Why? Here. Sometimes you don't know why you're scared. You're scared of stuff. You don't even know why. Because each person has a malach that represents him in Shemayim and takes care of him. That malach sees everything. When that malach gets scared, you get scared in return. The person that's scared, you see from here, that if a person is scared, so don't yell at your wife why she's scared of this and that. Her mazel is telling you to be scared. She has a better mazel than you, has better vision than yours. Says the Gemara, what if you're scared? Look at Kriya Shema. You should say Kriya Shema. And if you can't say Kriya Shema, it's dirty. He should jump 4 amos. So, what's going on? You're worried about a shed. So you're worried about a shed, run away 4 amos. Now, there's a wild Ben Yoyada, very famous one. We got to say it anyway. And if it wasn't the Ben Yoyada, I would have mentioned it here. But Ben Yoyada says, why doesn't it say in the Gemara, just walk away 4 amos? Why does he jump? He has to take a flying leap. A flying leap. Says Ben Yoyada because just like monkeys see, monkey do. That's his words. I'm using his words. Monkey see, monkey do. A shade also. Monkey see, monkey do. Shade see, shade do. If a shade sees you walking nicely to the corner, he follows you. Then the danger is still there. But if you take a running jump, so he takes a running jump. But guess what? When he jumps, he ends up in a different country. And you want him to end up in a different country? That's what he says. And then he goes on to say, I kid you not. He says, it's a Maisa, caps for sale. I promise. Look it up. There's a guy, he was under a tree and he had all his caps. And the monkeys went on, they grabbed his caps, he went on the tree. And what he did was, he took off his cap and threw it to the ground, and all the monkeys threw the caps to the ground. Monkey see, monkey do, and that's shed see, shade do. Ayin sham. V'loi le'machi. And if that trick doesn't work, you say, Izu de beit habachi, shamina minoi. There's always different lachashim that you say. Here it means, why don't you chase the goat? Forget about me, and it works. V'ashad amers medino medino ve'ir ve'ir l'drasha. Medina, Lidrasha, Mishpacha, Lamayasa. So now in the famous pasuk, Medina, Mishpacha, what does it come to say? If you're doing the avodah, perform, you have a carbon to perform, you mevatel the avodah. What does it mean mevatel the avodah? It says taisus, doesn't mean you mevatel. It means you push it off. You come back 2 hours later. Why? Listen to this taisus. Why don't you do top taisus? Why don't you just do the avodah? And you have the whole day to read the Megillah. Says taisus. Because you need to be in shul with hundreds of people. When are you going to read the Megillah all by yourself? So it comes out Allah l'maisa from this. If you have a shul in your basement on Purim, leave that basement and go to the big shul where everybody's there. If you have like a temporary shul, because of the Persum Menisa, if the kahn does it, you should also. We just learned what Mamadim is. The new guys, Mamadim means that the Klal Yisrael represents every carbon talmud, every morning, every evening needs all of Klal Yisrael standing there, but all can't stand there. We have representatives that represent us. They're called Mamadim. Everybody comes to hear the Megillah. Same exact words. Oh, listen to this. In the yeshiva of Rebbe, you have to understand, Mikra Megillah, by the way, they say that if the kahn is going to be mevatel, some Rishonim say, if he's not going to be able to perform the avodah at all, instead of Megillah, no, avodah is the rice, so Megillah is the rabbanon, that comes first. We're talking about you can do both. So, what over here it says, you leave yeshiva, you close your Gemara, you close your Daf Yomi in order to hear Megillah. And how do I know it? So, you should read the Megillah instead of learning Torah. I gotta say, we're running out of time, so you can just look at this if you want, and you get it all. The question is, Megillah is Torah. So how you mevatel Torah by reading the Megillah? Bottom question. Answer is, Beis Ephraim says, it's not Torah. It's only Persum Minisa. You're not Mekayim a mitzvah Talmud Torah. Says the Avnei Nezer, what are you talking about? It's impossible to say such a thing. Of course it's Torah. Then we wouldn't have the whole Maseches Megillah. Darshan each word in the psukim, this and that. So, it happens to be that the Beis Ephraim himself says a beautiful shot. I like it. He says it's Bittul Torah be'echos. When you know the story of Haman and Esther, you know it, inside out. So you're learning Torah. You have a little bit of a mitzvah. But there's two mitzvahs to Talmud Torah. There's learning, saying Tehillim, and there's understanding and gaining new knowledge. Learning Gemara is new knowledge every day. Daf Yomi, new knowledge. The Rashash says, we're talking about a Rebbe that all his Talmidim heard the Megillah, but he has to leave to hear the Megillah. So by him leaving, he's going to cause 100 people to be Mivatal Torah. That's the Bittul Torah. Rabbi Akiva Eiger argues, and he says that if you have 100 Talmidim that are going to go out and play in recess, you do not listen to the Megillah. That's called Rabbim, Bittul Torah Rabbim, and it's Doicha Megillah. And Rabbi Chaim Brisker says that the words Achashtrada b'nei Aramachim, which nobody has a clue what it means, that's the only Bittul Torah in the Megillah. So you have 3.5 seconds that nobody knows what it is. That's the Bittul Torah. You should be learning Torah instead of it. Maybe it's Purim Torah. I don't know. Says the Gemara. We said this already. No. What? Bring a carbon is greater than Talmud Torah. By the way, tomorrow is a much shorter daf. Beis Hashem will catch up a lot. So, he opened up his eyes and he saw a man, and he bowed. How could you say hello to him? You're not allowed to say the word shalom. The word shalom is Hashem's name. It's perhaps you're not talking to a human, you're talking to a shade, and you just said Hashem's name in vain. So, by the way, I need to point out, don't shoot the messenger. To say, oh my God, is asur. Because that's the name of Hashem in vain. In the Mishnah Berurah, oh my God, he says. It's in the Shulchan Aruch, Mishnah Berurah, so try not to say it in vain, if you can. It's not a chumrah, it's a real halacha. So, what? That, oh my gosh, is perfect. That's why we say oh my gosh. That's why you change it to gosh. That's the whole point. Says the Gemara, I'm not a Rav. Ask your local rabbi. God sounds okay to me. Or if you just say, I'm teaching Torah now, I could say Hashem's name. Just
They can't say oh my
God, they could say it. No, spelling is. Yeah, it's asking spelling, yeah. That's the Gemara. Shani awesome. The shed that you think is a shed is not a shed because he said Hashem's name. Maybe he's lying, he's just using Hashem's name to fool you. We know a shade never says Hashem's name in vain. Listen to this. It's unbelievable Gemara. You learn tremendous insights from these lines here. The Malach comes and has a tiny Yehoshua. He says, look, yesterday you didn't bring the carbon tamid. You had no business. You're sitting there. You're not going to war. It's nighttime. You don't have lights. So why didn't you bring a carbon tamid? V'achshav. But worse than that, bitaltim Talmud Torah. What are you doing over there? Yeah, war. Sit down, open the Gemara and learn. He's coming. A Malach comes b'tayna. Omar loy alizim in basa. Tell me which one is worse. Why are you here? Omar loy at the basi. I'm coming for now. Bittul Torah. What right do you have to watch a movie now when you have to learn? It's a taina. A malach comes down and yells at him. We don't have that, unfortunately. Oh my Lord, atabas miad. And not, in other words, I'm not coming for the carbon. The carbon is one problem. Torah. What's going to be with Bittul Torah? Miad vayolin Yehoshua b'leilahu b'toch says Rashi. It's another war on the high, not by Yericho. He was talking about Yericho, saying, but when he had the first opportunity to correct his way, he corrected. Everybody, the entire army. Sahal, open up your Gemaras. We're not at war now. We're at break time at night. Open your Gemaras. He was learning Torah, not Stam Torah, deep into the Torah. Daf Amud Beis, sponsored by Aaron Strook, in honor of my parents Josh and Naomi Strook. Aaron ben Shimon HaKohen, first yard side. Sponsored anonymously as a zechus for shidduchim for my siblings and myself. Godel Talmud Torah. It's greater, learning Torah is greater than bringing a carbon, shenemar at the basi. And he didn't talk about carbon, he's more worried about the Torah. Like Hashem. So, says the Gemara, Rabim, the Yachid. When Yehoshua, why are you telling me that Megillah pushes off? When Yehoshua was a problem of Torah of Rabim. The whole Klal Yisrael wasn't learning. That's different. The Yachid. When it comes to Yachid, the Yachid does have to go. Close the Gemara. Avoid is greater than Talmud Torah. Yeah. Ud Yachid Kal. What? You think it's so simple when you're learning by yourself? But nan. If there's a dead person and women on Chalamoid, they could say a hesped all together. They all say it together. They can't bang on their chest like this. Like they can't do that. Rabbi Shmuel Loimer, it's not appropriate for Chalamoid. Rabbi Shmuel Loimer, but if they're right there next to the dead, then I allow it. On Purim, they could say hesped. They could bang. Some say, Taisa says it means clapping like this, smacking yourself in the face. Good stuff. Now, Purim of this, you can't do Mekoinis. Mekoinis means that one woman screams out, "Oh, she's a great lady," and they all say, "She's a great lady," scream after her. That's too much. Oh, so here's the question from here. When it comes to Chalamoid and a Talmud Chacham, there's a dead Talmud Chacham sitting in front of us, there is no Chalamoid. Kolshkein Chanukah Purim, and certainly the Kavod HaMeis, the Kavod HaTorah pushes off Chanukah Purim. In other words, if you have to read the Megillah or go to the Levaya of Gol Adar, you go to Gol Adar. Moshe Feinstein was nifter on Purim. I don't have time for the story. It's a very interesting story. People want to hear the story later. Fine. The Levaya, yeah, the Levaya. I'm sorry, the Levaya. That's what I'm talking about. Not when he was nifter. The Levaya, the Kavod HaMeis of Moshe Feinstein here in Eretz Yisrael. Kavod Torah Kamris, Kavod Torah. So what do you bring me a raya? You ask me a question from this that going to Levaya of Gol Adar is more important than Megillah. You're right, but that's something different. Kavod Torah Kamris, Kavod Torah the Yachid Chamor. Kavod Torah the Yachid Chamor. Talmud Torah the Yachid Kal. If it's Kavod Torah going through Moshe Feinstein's Levaya, that pushes off Megillah. Why? Says the Sfas Emes, because now you have all his hours of Torah. Somebody once had I heard a hesped on Reb Eliashiv, and he did a whole calculation. I don't remember the calculation, but if he learned 18 hours a day and he lived 100 years, so he had 550,000 hours of Torah in his brain. That's what I'm going to Levi for. I'm going for the 500,000 hours. But when it's a Yachid, he's just learning this Daf Gemara. Since one Daf Gemara, Megillah pushes off one Daf Gemara. It doesn't push off the 500,000 hours. Okay, so look at this. Very, very, very simple. Here we go. Pshitali. Avoidu umikra Megillah. If I have to bring a carbon or I do Megillah, Megillah is on top. Mikra Megillah. We learned before, Mishpacha, even Koyahanim, they leave the Beis HaMikdash to do Megillah. Talmud Torah, Mikra Megillah. What about right over here? Blue, down here? Mikra Megillah. We just said, we had a Kavachaymer. Megillah is on top. Talmud Torah, Meis Mitzvah. What about Torah and a dead person in the street? Meis Mitzvah Adif. You have to take care of the dead person. Midatanya here. Meis Mitzvah goes on top of Torah. You should be mevatel Torah to take out the dead. I have to say this. I know I'm a little late. I must say it. Reb Chaim Kreisworth was very sick. They told him you have 2 months to live. So he went to the stipler, and the stipler said, "What's between Bikur Cholim and Levayis Hameis? What's in between the two? Hachnasas Kala. Why is it stuck in there?" It says if a person has Bikur Cholim, he's sick. In order that it shouldn't be Levayis Hameis, do Achnasas Kala. Be Isaac in Achnasas Kala. And he dedicated his life to Achnasas Kala, and he lived another 22 years. I'm learning this Gemara this morning. I wouldn't share this with you otherwise. I would share the picture, but not what the person wrote. I'll show you the picture meanwhile. His name is Ephraim Wordsman. Rebelli, words can't express my appreciation for your message. I was totally touched by your unbelievable kindness. It came at a very hard time for me when I was so septic and unwell. Both my mom and I will never forget the special chesed you did for us. Was the best mevakah chaylim I've ever done. I've ever had. Thank you for giving me the zechus to make 3 siyumim. Keep on dafing. Here's a sick bacher. Ephraim Wordsman, his whole family, his uncles, brothers, everybody does the daf. And somebody told me that he's in the hospital, in and out of the hospital. So I left him yesterday. As I'm learning this, this popped on my phone. You can be Mekayim, the best speaker chaylim, on the phone. Call a text message. I didn't even speak to him. Text message. I left him a voice note. That's what it was. Voice note. Yom chizuk. Best mevakeh chaylim that he ever had. As I state, to read it if you want. Okay, but I thought it was not a coincidence. Another zach, and I know we're here. I know it's late. It won't be like this every day. Somebody wrote here that Shlomi Rosenberg asked Mo Landy if he had a way to getting a Gemara to a patient who's staying in a hospital 45 minutes away from Monsey. This is MDY, Rabbi behind the scenes. Chesed lagavi chesed lagavi chesed. This is a guy in the hospital. And I got the email that is a person that never learned Gemara in his life, but his son-in-law wanted to be mechazik him, and he said, okay, I'm going to start the daf. But he's 45 minutes away from anything. A guy in Monsey got in his car, he was going somewhere next to there, whatever, gave him the Gemara. This is the chesed of another example of MDY family love. He wrote, in the hospital, okay. So let's just finish this. And I had a great vart, but we don't have time for it. If we're so makbid on Meis Mitzvah, certainly for Chayim Mitzvah. If the guy's dead on the floor, but he's already dead, so we're talking about that. What about a guy's alive, but he's alone in the nursing home? That doesn't require that we should go out of our way and be mechazik and etc. Okay. Zog the Gemara, Meis Mitzvah Adif. So now, just this. So now we have the chart. We know that Torah is on the bottom when it comes to mitzvah, and when it comes to Meis Mitzvah, when it comes to Megillah. We know that Avodah is under Megillah. The Sanya, the famous Gemara, we're not going to go into it now. There's an extra word there. A person was going to do Ehrenpeis or to do Milah on his son. And there's a dead person. Maybe the kohen should become tamei. I'm just lo yitam. He shouldn't. But maybe he shouldn't even become tamei to a person that's a dead person that nobody's taking care of. Fine, we'll stop over here. The boys have a wonderful day.